At the business banquet, my wife Willow's ex provoked me with his words. My wife not only strongly defended me, she also publicly rebuked her ex. But instead of being touched, I switched her presentation file for the bidding conference with a scandalous video of her and that ex cheating. That was when everyone finally saw the truth. The woman who appeared to love her husband more than life itself, Willow, had secretly kept tangled ties with her ex. The two of them found countless excuses to meet behind my back. In the end, I was nothing more than a pawn in their so-called love game. What she never dreamed of was this: before we got married, she once asked her lawyer to prepare a prenuptial agreement. As long as one party filed for divorce, our marriage would immediately come to an end. But who could have known that when I ruthlessly cast her aside and started a new life, she would go mad, abandon her ex, and give up her entire fortune, determined to risk everything just to win me back. Chapter 1. Mr. Wong, the prenuptial agreement you signed has taken effect. You're expected to receive your divorce certificate in half a month. Inside the banquet hall, I looked at the lawyer's text message on my phone with a calm face. I sat alone in the corner, when suddenly several glasses of wine were set down in front of me. George. Makoto sized me up with disdain and sneered. I remember the invitation said Willow's name. Why are you here? Lifting my eyes to see three familiar faces, I answered coldly. She's on a business trip. I came in her place. The other two burst into mocking laughter. George, you should be kowtowing in thanks to Makoto. If he hadn't gone abroad back then, you'd never have landed Willow, that rich woman. The son of a chauffeur marrying the daughter of the richest man. Your ancestors must be burning incense in gratitude. Makoto arched an eyebrow, leaned close to my ear, and whispered, "Oh, right. I almost forgot to ask, has your sick old man died yet? With such a cursed son, he must have been doomed already." My pupils contracted sharply, and I shoved him back hard. "Watch your damn mouth." Makoto staggered a couple of steps, then, enraged, grabbed a wine glass and hurled it at my head, growling with venom. "Today is my welcome back banquet. A broke nobody like you doesn't deserve to be here." I couldn't dodge in time. Blood gushed from my temple, running down my face and suit, horrifying to behold. "Makoto." A cold, sharp voice rang out. Makoto froze mid-action. Everyone turned toward the entrance. Willow strode in wearing a tight pencil skirt that accentuated her long pale legs, high heels clicking with authority. Her hair was a little messy, her clothes still dotted with raindrops. Clearly, she had rushed back in a hurry. As she walked straight toward me, I lowered my gaze, bitterness rising in my chest. Willow stood protectively in front of me, her expression icy as she snapped at Makoto. "George is my husband. If you've got a problem, bring it to me." Hearing the anger in her tone, Makoto's arrogance quickly deflated, and he softened his voice. "Willow, you only married him out of spite for me. Now that I'm back, don't tell me these hurtful things." "All right." But instead of softening, Willow's expression grew even colder. Word by word, she said, "Makoto, what makes you think I would wait for you?" Her words choked him into silence, leaving him standing there speechless. Willow ignored him, took my hand, and left without hesitation. Through the reflection in the car's glass, I saw her gripping the steering wheel tightly. Her brows knotted in frustration. Perhaps sensing the silence, Willow suddenly thought of something and asked, "George, isn't our anniversary coming up soon?" In the 7 years we'd been married, she had never once forgotten a single holiday. But this year, when she heard Makoto was coming back, she hadn't spared even a thought for it. It was yesterday. Willow turned to glance at me. My expression was as calm and flat as my tone, no sign of complaint. "Sorry, I've been too busy with work lately. I told my assistant to buy you a limited edition sports car, as compensation." Her voice was gentle, apologetic. She remembered the car just because I had once mentioned it in passing. She was always attentive to me, even though she had never truly loved me. The thought brought a stabbing ache to my chest. I forced a smile, just as I was about to refuse. Then her phone rang. "Willow, I've been drinking. I can't walk. Can you come take me home?" Chapter 2. Hearing from his voice that Makoto Ito was drunk, Willow suddenly slammed the brakes, her tone sharp. "Doesn't your Ito family have a driver? This is my last warning. I already have a family of my own. Don't cross the line." On the other end, his voice turned pitiful. "I've never asked you for anything, and now, even sending me home is too much. Fine, then I'll never bother you again. I wish you happiness." Willow pressed her lips tightly, her thoughts in complete turmoil. After a moment of silence, she finally relented. "Wait for me." After hanging up, she turned to me with an apologetic face. "George, if you don't feel at ease, come with me to pick him up." Several times I wanted to tell her about the divorce agreement, but the words stuck in my throat. Her usually cold eyes were glimmering now, looking utterly sincere. Perhaps because I still harbored a trace of foolish hope for her love, I nodded. "All right." At the entrance of the clubhouse, Willow had just stepped out of the car when Makoto immediately lunged onto her. "Willow, I knew you would come for me." The sudden physical contact made Willow frown instinctively. She tried to push him off, but he only clung tighter. Let go. No, Willow. I'll never let you go again for the rest of my life. Makoto held her stubbornly, sounding deadly serious. Every time Willow pried his arms away, he wrapped them back around her. In the end, Willow gave up resisting, leaned into his chest, and raised her arms to hold him back. Makoto, I can never do anything about you. Watching this from inside the car, my heart clenched with searing pain. Just minutes ago I still had hope, but it vanished completely now. Suddenly, Willow knocked on the car window. George, Makoto is drunk and needs care. I'll have to trouble you to drive. Her tone was matter-of-fact, as though what had just happened required no explanation to me at all. Suppressing the bitterness in my throat, I asked her, so you called me here just to be your chauffeur? Sensing the sharpness in my voice, Willow frowned. The next second, she opened the car door. George, don't throw a tantrum. She said it with no room for refusal, like ordering around a pet. Around us stood many of her and Makoto's mutual friends, their eyes filled with contempt and pity all at once. I felt a wave of discomfort, my fists clenching tight. In the end, I still got out and sat in the driver's seat. On the road, Makoto clung to Willow, his hands roaming over her, sliding toward her chest. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Willow's cheeks were flushed, her eyes clouded with desire. Panting slightly, she warned him, "Stop, or I'll get another car to take you." Makoto gave a low chuckle, then reached up to ruffle her hair. All right, I'll behave. Willow, come with me tomorrow to see some houses. Didn't you once say you wanted to live in a mountain villa? I've decided to buy one there. Then we can go hiking and breathe fresh air all the time. At his words, my fingers tightened unconsciously around the steering wheel. The air inside the car was suffocating. Finally, I couldn't resist looking again in the mirror, meeting Willow's apologetic gaze. In that instant, my heart sank completely to the bottom. Well, what do you say? Makoto pressed for her answer. Yes. Her gentle response carried a tenderness I had never felt in our 7 years of marriage. In her heart, as long as it was about Makoto, it would always be her top priority. I mocked myself silently. After all, we were already divorced. There was no anniversary left to celebrate. Ever since Makoto ran away from marriage years ago, Willow's ties with the Ito family had lessened greatly. When we arrived, the elders of the Ito family immediately rushed out warmly upon seeing Willow. Willow, it's been so long. I just bought a new batch of Longjing tea you love. Come in and have some before you leave. Feeling Makoto's expectant gaze on her, she agreed. All right. She walked straight into the Ito family villa. No one remembered there was still another person sitting in the car. A few minutes later, I received her message. Go home first. George, get some rest. Chapter 3. On the way back, the sound of rain pattered outside the car. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as I stared numbly ahead. Memories surfacing in a haze. My father had worked as a chauffeur for the Liu family for more than 10 years, and with his meager earnings, he put me into the best elite high school in Beijing, where I ended up sharing a dorm bunk with Makoto. At that school, everyone was from wealth and privilege. Because I was a chauffeur's son, I was isolated by the entire dorm. Makoto was arrogant and spoiled, but I wasn't one to bow easily either. When they locked me outside in the freezing night air, I waited until midnight and used a water hose to soak their beds. When they stuffed bugs into my collar, I retaliated by hiding dead fish under their pillows. The worst incident was when they dragged me onto the podium during evening study, shaved my head, and mocked me as a monk. My hands were pinned down, and I watched in despair as the razor pressed toward my scalp. The classmates around us either watched with amusement or pity, but none dared to step in to help. At that moment, Willow walked in. Without hesitation, she snatched the razor from Makoto's hand. She forced the classmates who had filmed the scene to delete the videos, then took me straight to the infirmary. She was only cleaning up Makoto's mess, but as I followed behind her to the infirmary, staring at her bright and pure silhouette, my heart, always lonely and unsupported, skipped uncontrollably. From that day onward, I started to pay attention to Willow, deliberately or not. She watched every one of Makoto's basketball games, and during halftime she was always the first to rush forward to hand him water. She wiped his sweat with a smile, her expression tender. When people around teased her about being with Makoto, she never denied it. Instead, her eyes sparkled with expectation as she looked at him. Her love for Makoto was blazing and fierce. I knew it. She loved Makoto deeply, but I didn't dwell too much on it. Without Makoto's bullying, I could finally focus on my studies. In the end, I was admitted into Beijing University with the highest score in science across the entire school. After graduating from university, when my father's health declined, I went to the Liu family house to pack up his belongings from the servants' quarters. By chance, I walked into Willow, Liu and Makoto's wedding. But even though the ceremony had already begun, the groom still hadn't shown up. Willow desperately called him again and again, only to receive a message from Makoto. He said he had gone abroad with a car show model, and this wedding would just have to be cancelled. It was the 9th time he had abandoned her at the altar. He always had countless excuses. He wasn't ready for marriage. The tuxedo didn't fit. He had stayed up too late the night before and overslept. This time, however, Willow didn't tolerate it. From the crowd, she spotted me carrying bags of luggage and, in front of everyone, asked me directly, "Will you be my groom?" Every gaze turned sharply to me. My breath caught, my chest pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. We were people from two different worlds. She, like the moon in the sky. Me, like dust on the ground. Since high school graduation, I had never thought our lives would intersect again. Seeing my silence, Willow inhaled deeply and asked once more, "Will you marry me?" As if possessed, I nodded. That day, I married a woman who couldn't even remember my name. For 7 years, our marriage was respectful but distant. We weren't like passionate lovers clinging to each other, nor were we estranged from endless fights. We simply lived together in quiet routine. When my father's health faltered, Willow hired the best medical teams from both China and abroad, curing the illnesses left behind from years of labor. On my birthday, on our anniversaries, on every big and small holiday, she always prepared gifts ahead of time and booked restaurants. Even though my lowly background drew disdain from others, she stood firm, silenced all gossip, and at every grand event, she brought me along, firmly holding my hand. I once believed these were signs that she, too, had feelings for me, but last month, I happened to overhear a conversation between her and her best friend. "Makoto is coming back to the country. He's still single. All these years, he often asked me about you. Honestly, he's never forgotten you. If you hadn't gotten married, you two would have been together for sure." Ugh. Willow, you loved Makoto for so many years. Why did you just randomly marry some man back then? At the mention of him, Willow's tone turned cold. He can go chase after cheap car models. Why can't I marry a cheap man? Chapter 4. Her best friend scolded her angrily. You didn't have to actually marry him. Just being with George to provoke Makoto would have been enough, right? Don't worry. George signed a prenuptial agreement. If Makoto admits his mistake and comes back with the right attitude, I'll divorce him. She said it casually, without the slightest hesitation. Standing by the doorway, eavesdropping, I felt like a knife had been driven straight into my chest. The pain left me breathless. Back then, the lawyer had insisted I sign a prenuptial agreement. It stipulated that as long as either party requested a divorce, the marriage would end immediately. I had always believed it was my in-laws' idea, worried I might covet the Liu family's wealth. I never imagined it was Willow's decision all along. From the very moment she married me, she had already planned her escape. The love and marriage I had treasured so deeply were nothing more than tools Willow used to vent her anger at Makoto. If that was the case, then I was done being part of their twisted little movie. In the days that followed, Willow didn't return home, nor did she go to the company. But Makoto's WeChat updates never stopped. 9 photo grids, every single one with Willow in them. Selfies of them cheek to cheek, with half a heart drawn on each of their faces in lipstick. Shots of her massaging his shoulders, of them dining together at one fancy restaurant after another. Makoto even made sure to tag me in every post, just to rub it in. At first, I felt pain, anger, grief, until eventually, all I felt was numbness. I took down our wedding photo from the living room, packed up all the gifts she had ever given me into boxes, and stored them in the study. But when I opened the cabinet and saw shelf after shelf filled with gift boxes, I froze. They were the gifts I had given her over the past 7 years, untouched, all still stacked neatly inside. I remembered how I had always started preparing months in advance, how I had sought out renowned designers one by one, from booking appointments, to discussions, to revisions, to final production. I had done it all myself, but she had never cared. My painstaking efforts meant nothing to her, not even worth the act of opening the boxes. My throat tightened unbearably, as though something clogged it. I was too drained to even cry. Then suddenly, my phone rang. It was her. "George, Makoto just moved into his new place and he's throwing a party. Come too." I tried to steady my trembling voice. "You know I don't get along with him." There was silence for a few seconds. Then Willow's tone went cold. "Makoto specifically asked to invite you. Do you want me to come pick you up myself?" So once again, it was only because of Makoto that she thought of me. A bitter laugh escaped me. "No need. Fine, I've already arranged a driver waiting at your door." And then she hung up. I still went. The address was a seaside villa. When I arrived, they had just finished dinner. The moment they saw me, the lively atmosphere chilled instantly. Makoto was the first to stand up. "George is here." Seated beside him, Willow only cast me a sidelong glance, saying nothing. A heaviness pressed against my chest. I stood awkwardly in the doorway, out of place. "You haven't eaten, right? We've got some leftovers, should be enough for you." Makoto feigned enthusiasm. Around the room, eyes full of disdain and rejection swept up and down my figure. "No need," I said. Don't be like that. This is imported beef and seafood my father had flown in from abroad. Totally different from the kind of field cattle you've eaten before. Come on, have a taste. As soon as Makoto finished, others chimed in. Exactly. The cows he eats from work the fields their whole lives. The meat's probably bitter. Haha. Don't mock him like that. Everyone's had beef. It's not such a big deal. What really counts is the seafood we caught from under the glaciers. He's probably never even seen it. My face drained of color. My legs felt like they were filled with lead as I stood there, listening to their ridicule. Have you said enough? Willow Lu's face had darkened, her tone cold. George has been my husband for 7 years. Do you think my Lu family can't afford these things? Her words carried clear displeasure, and the room fell silent. No one dared cross her, but I felt no relief. She hadn't denied their insults. Her words only meant this: when you beat a dog, you still have to consider its master. Chapter 5. Watching all this, Makoto found it amusing. He laughed twice and told everyone that after eating, they should head into the room to play games. As he passed me, his face was full of provocation. These few days with Willow have been better than the 7 years she spent with you. Poor loser. What do you even have to compete with me? My hand clenched tightly at my side, my glare fixed on his expression of certain victory. The game room was spacious, decorated with a starry sky ceiling. Next to it stood a wine cabinet filled with rare liquors, each bottle worth tens of thousands. I sat alone in the corner, while Willow was surrounded by everyone else, seated at the head. Suddenly, she stood up and walked straight over to sit by my side. Seeing us together, the atmosphere instantly grew awkward. Makoto returned from the wine cabinet with bottles in hand. When his eyes fell on us, a flicker of jealousy crossed his face. He placed the wine on the table, then sat down casually right next to Willow. I could feel it clearly. Willow's gaze was always on Makoto. I had to admit, the gap between Makoto and me had been decided the moment we were born. The thought left me even more suffocated. I silently lifted a glass of liquor, only to have a fair hand suddenly stop me. This is strong alcohol. Your stomach can't handle it. Better switch to something else. Willow looked at me with concern, but I pressed my lips together, unmoved. She ordered a servant to bring me a drink instead. Makoto, noticing this, whispered something to the servant and then looked back at me with feigned innocence. Oh, right. I forgot. You can't handle alcohol. Pure man. I happen to have some juice here. It's Willow's favorite brand from back in the day. At his words, Willow's previously calm eyes lit up. That vineyard shut down years ago. Where did you get it? Makoto gave a mysterious smile. I begged the owner many times. Only a fool refuses money. Besides, the amount I paid was enough to buy his entire vineyard. In the end, he agreed to restart the machines and make one final batch of juice. Seeing how much he was willing to do for her, Willow's eyes brimmed with restrained affection. Her red lips parted several times as if to say something, but in the end, all she whispered was, "Thank you." Around them, people couldn't help but comment. Makoto would go this far for Willow. He's truly devoted. They've been a pair since childhood. Now that Makoto's back, that freeloader should know his place and step aside. Willow ignored their chatter, her eyes fixed on Makoto, searching his expression for more proof of his love. The louder the crowd egged them on, the more Makoto played along, urging everyone to drink. Although I had been the one to marry Willow back then, everyone seemed to see me as the real intruder, the outsider wedged between them. My face grew increasingly pale. Makoto suddenly pulled out a deck of cards and announced, "Let's play a game. After the cards are dealt, whoever has the highest number can choose anyone here to go into the private booth with them for 7 minutes. During those 7 minutes, anything goes." As soon as he explained the rules, the room erupted with cheers. Makoto, this 7 minutes in heaven game was tailor-made for you and Willow, wasn't it? Just admit what you want to do with her already. Willow lowered her head shyly, while Makoto's eyes glimmered with desire as he looked at her leisurely. Once the cards were dealt, Willow indeed drew the highest card, and the atmosphere instantly peaked. Everyone teased Makoto for rigging the deck, and he didn't even deny it. All he wanted was to see who she would choose. To her left was me, to her right was Makoto. All eyes waited for her decision. My face turned even paler. Deep down, I knew exactly what her choice would be. All these years, she had never truly let go of Makoto. The thought crushed the last of my patience. I was about to get up and leave, when suddenly, Willow held my hand. Chapter 6. George, it's just a game, she said. Then Willow stood up, pulled Makoto by the hand, and chose to go into the closed booth with him. Everyone around cheered and whistled, while I felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over me from head to toe, leaving me completely adrift. Hey, you can tell too, right? Willow's true love has always been Makoto. Be smart and leave her on your own. Stop clinging like a nuisance. With his kind of background, what else could he want besides money? Freeloader, he's a disgrace to all men. Their malice was undisguised. So this was it, 7 years of love, and I was the only one who had taken it seriously. I couldn't bear to stay there watching them rekindle their old flame. I stood up to leave. Just as the 7 minutes ended, Willow and Makoto emerged from the booth one after the other. Willow's lips were swollen, and a fresh red mark lingered on her neck. What had happened inside was obvious. My heart ached so fiercely I could hardly breathe. Forcing the words out between my teeth, I said, "I'm not feeling well. I'll go back first." But my voice was swallowed by the noise. Willow's eyes were still shining with satisfaction as she looked at Makoto. Nobody cared whether I left or stayed. Silently, I walked out and called a car home alone. It had been a season of constant rain. Mornings began with clear skies, but by afternoon, dark clouds would blanket the city, pressing down so heavily it felt suffocating. On the road, my phone suddenly buzzed. It was a video from Makoto. In the mirror, Willow's gown was pulled down to her waist, while Makoto thrust into her from behind. Between his ragged breaths came his groveling apologies. "Willow, 7 years ago it was my fault. I never should have left you at the altar. Let me make you feel good. Please forgive me." "All right." Willow's face flushed crimson, her body trembling on the edge of climax. Her voice was soft and sweet. "Makoto, once isn't enough, then I'll give you more. Willow, tell me, will you really divorce George for me?" Her gasp stilled for a moment. Then, after a pause, she closed her eyes and clutched him tighter. "You know I can never resist you." The video ended. Inside, my heart was torn to shreds. My throat burned with bitterness. In that moment, 7 years of marriage turned completely to ash. I ignored Makoto's endless taunts and insults that followed. When I returned home, the very first thing I did was flush our wedding ring down the drain, then pack up what little belongings I had. By the time I finished, it was already dark. Just thinking that one more night and I'd be gone forever gave me a trace of relief. "George." Willow's voice suddenly rang out. My chest tightened as I stepped out of the room. Her face was stormy, Makoto standing beside her looking smug. I frowned and asked, "What is it?" "You still dare to ask me?" Makoto's luxury watch went missing by the entrance. Everyone else was in the room playing the game. You were the only one absent. Who else could it be? You can either take it out now yourself, or I'll call the police. Willow's voice was cold. Seeing the mocking look on Makoto's face, I instantly understood what was going on. "It wasn't me," I said calmly. Willow's wide eyes narrowed, her tone warning. "You still won't tell the truth?" Her certainty stabbed through me like a blade. My heart twisted painfully as I answered bitterly, "Willow, I've been married to you for 7 years. I've never once coveted a single valuable item from the Liu family, nor have I ever worn any luxury goods. And now you're accusing me of stealing a watch. Don't you think that's laughable?" When my eyes reddened, a flicker of doubt stirred in hers. Just then, Makoto stepped forward, pretending to speak righteously. "George, this watch was Willow's birthday gift to me. It's worth over 5 million. Losing it counts as a major property theft. If you're desperate for money, this isn't the way to get it." My brows furrowed, anger flaring in my voice. "I'll say it again. I didn't take it." Makoto continued, "I've long heard how many chauffeurs in this country steal from their employers. My fault for being careless moving into a new house without installing surveillance. Turns out you don't just need to watch the drivers, you need to watch the drivers' sons even more." My face hardened as I stared him down. "What are you implying?" Makoto turned to Willow. "Willow, you'd better check the old estate to see if anything's missing. After all, if he's the kind of son you raise, how clean could the father's hands have been?" My pupils contracted sharply. The next second, I swung and punched Makoto straight in the face. Chapter 7. Makoto's head snapped to the side from the punch, but the corner of his mouth curled into a twisted smile. Ever since high school, Makoto had known my father was my bottom line. Yet he deliberately provoked me again and again, forcing me into rage until I lost control. "Are you crazy?" Seeing Makoto get hit, Willow shoved me hard and shouted angrily. My back slammed against the edge of the table, pain shooting through me as I clenched my jaw. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her rushing to support Makoto, her face full of distress. My throat tightened. After confirming Makoto was fine, she turned to me, her gaze filled with ice. "George, have I treated you too well these past 7 years, that you've forgotten your place? Someone as lowborn as you isn't even worthy to carry Makoto's shoes." I froze for a moment. Then, in a hoarse voice, I said, "So that's how you really feel? Willow, if you've looked down on me from the start, then you never should have married me." Her proud face showed no flicker of emotion. Without hesitation, she called the police. The officers soon arrived. After hearing the situation, they began their search. I stood beside the sofa, watching as the luggage I had carefully packed was torn apart, while Willow crouched beside Makoto, soothing him softly without a glance at me. Suddenly, one of the officers shouted, "Found it. Right here in this man's bag." Staring at the luxury watch that had somehow appeared in my belongings, I froze for a second, then shook my head firmly. "I didn't take it. I don't know anything about this." "Mr. Wong, you'll need to come with us," the officer said calmly, clearly used to hearing such denials. Makoto let out a relieved breath. holding Willow as he said, "Willow, I told you long ago, George has been stealing since high school. You just never believed me." Willow's brows knit slightly. Her voice was faint. "Now I believe it." Her unveiled disgust pierced me like an icy blade, dropping me into a frozen abyss. In that moment, my last shred of feeling for her turned to ashes. I had once forced myself to ignore her childhood bond with Makoto, lying to myself that she was different. But now, I saw the truth. They had always been the same. In their eyes, everything belonging to the poor could be trampled on at will. They would always stand above us. My eyes burned red, blood seeping into the palms of my clenched fists. As I was taken away, Willow suddenly felt a strange pang in her heart, but she quickly brushed it aside. Then a voice broke her thoughts. "Willow, thanks for helping me get my watch back. Let me treat you to dinner." Makoto looked thoroughly pleased. After a brief silence, Willow agreed. "All right." Inside the detention center, I leaned against the cold iron wall, Willow's proud, indifferent face flashing again and again in my mind, so identical to Makoto's. My lips trembled twice, and finally, I could no longer hold back the tears. My marriage had been a mistake from the very beginning. I didn't close my eyes all night. Early the next morning, a guard came to inform me I had been bailed out. Dragging my numb body, pale and lifeless, I reached the entrance, where my father stood under the sunlight, eyes red with tears. The moment he saw me, he waved excitedly, his throat rasping out broken sounds. Through hand signs, he told me, "George, I'll take you away." My nose stung, and I rushed forward to hug him tightly. My father patted my back, his hoarse voice making wordless sounds, over and over telling me it was all right. On the way to the airport, my phone buzzed with new messages. "George, don't ever do sneaky things like this again. It disgraces the Liu family's reputation. If there's something you want, just tell me directly. I'll satisfy you. Reflect well during your time inside. When you're released, I'll come pick you up." Reading those words, my heart didn't stir in the slightest. Without hesitation, I pulled out the SIM card, threw it away, and left without looking back. I swore to myself, I would make those who deceived and hurt me pay the price. Chapter 8. The plane landed in Country R, and I never expected to run into her here. Anna, bright eyes, white teeth, long flowing hair, dressed sharply, strode toward us. "George, it's been a long time." Her clear voice rang out. By the time I came back to myself, she was already greeting my father in sign language, and my father was smiling as he replied. She said, "Uncle, it's been so long. How has your health been lately?" My father signed back, "All is well, Anna. The last time I saw you, you were still in middle school. Now you've grown into a fine young lady." I racked my memory and finally recalled, she was Anna, the only daughter of the Su family, who had never gotten along with Willow. The Liu and Su families had been close for generations. As a child, she used to visit the Lius with her parents, and I had seen her a few times, but later, the entire Su family immigrated abroad, and I hadn't seen her since. Watching her and my father converse fluently in sign language, I was surprised. Then Anna Su suddenly turned her gaze toward me. My face was pale, my eyes guarded, her brows knitted faintly, a flicker of heartache passing quickly through her eyes. But the next second, her tone lightened as she asked, "My group is short a director of architectural design. Would you like to take the position?" My heart jolted. Becoming a designer had always been my dream. I had majored in architectural design in college. Even after marrying Willow, I often stayed up late drafting sketches and revising plans for her. But Willow always had excuses, never letting me officially join the company, only keeping me as an assistant behind the scenes. Then, when Makoto returned, she directly reassigned all my designs under his name, parachuting him into the Liu group as a vice president. Makoto took the fame and fortune, while I, the one who did the real work, remained unknown, buried in the shadows. Now, the chance for real work stood right in front of me. My chest burned again with long-suppressed fire. Yet years of betrayal made me hesitate. Torn inside, "I've looked into you," Anna continued. "Your abilities are outstanding across the board. Top GPA at university. Nearly half of Liu Group's projects were based on your designs and plans. We currently have a major project up for bid. Since our company and the Liu Group are competitors, I need someone as exceptional as you. But if you're uncomfortable, I won't force you. Take your time to think." "I accept." I cut her off, agreeing on the spot. My face was still pale, but hope lit in my eyes. "I can do this job." It was time to seek justice for everything I had endured. Anna's gaze shifted slightly, and she nodded. On the way, she explained the basics of her group and mentioned that there was a temporary staff dormitory we could use for now. Soon we arrived, facing the fully furnished 3-story apartment. I was stunned. Anna, still in her businesslike tone, said, "You came on short notice. Southwest, this place was only tidied up a little. If anything's missing, you can have your butler send it over. Or just call me directly. I'll always be available." I lifted my head. Her face was serious. She wasn't joking. A staff dormitory with a butler. This was a first for me. After Anna left, my father and I stepped inside. The apartment was designed in a Japanese minimalist style. The fridge was filled with drinks and fruit. Even the closet was stocked with brand new clothes, all in my size. Unable to hold back, I called Anna to ask, but she calmly insisted that these were simply standard staff dormitory provisions. Nothing special. After hanging up, I decided not to dwell on it. I opened the project documents and poured myself into work. At the upcoming bidding conference, I was determined to deliver a gift to Willow and Makoto they would never forget. Chapter 9. In City A. Makoto eagerly dragged Willow around a car exhibition. Willow kept glancing at her phone. According to the schedule, George had been released from the detention center for an hour already, yet he still hadn't replied to any of her messages. In the past, no matter when she texted him, he always responded instantly, even in the middle of the night. If she asked him to bring documents to the company, he would do it without a word. But today, he was strangely quiet. The chat window still displayed the message she had sent him 2 hours earlier. George, Makoto's in a bad mood today, so I'm keeping him company at the car exhibition. I won't be able to pick you up from the detention center. I'll send a driver to get you instead. Tonight, let's have dinner together when I get home. Yet just above that was her earlier promise. When George was released, she herself would pick him up. Only a single night had passed, and she had already broken her word with ease. Scrolling up and down the chat history, Willow's eyes betrayed none of the joy of shopping. Willow, I got a rare blind box. Look, isn't this model car nice? Makoto waved the miniature excitedly, his eyes shining with the same brightness he had back in high school, when he bullied George. Willow frowned, her gaze sliding away as she replied flatly, "It looks nice." Noticing her distraction, Makoto complained, "You didn't even look properly." "Forget it. What would a woman know about this anyway? If you hadn't insisted on waiting outside instead of coming in with me, I could have stayed much longer. I really am too considerate with you." Staring happily at the model, he suddenly muttered under his breath, "This one's the most popular in the whole series. I even saw George keeping it by his bedside once. But someone like him, how could he deserve to like the same things as me? Ridiculous." Willow suddenly turned her head. George liked this model too. Makoto's expression stiffened. After an awkward chuckle, he forced out, "Yeah." After hearing his confirmation, Willow stood up and walked into the shop. Turning to the clerk, she said, "Give me every blind box of this model you have. I'll buy them all." Gasps filled the shop instantly. Seeing her spend so lavishly, people whispered guesses about which wealthy heiress was buying blind boxes for her beloved. Hearing their speculation, Willow's lips curved into a faint smile as she calmly said, "My husband likes this model too." At those words, the shop burst into louder chatter. Hearing the commotion, a flicker of frustration passed through Makoto's eyes. He shoved the model car in his hand straight into the trash. By the time Willow finished her circuit around the shop, purchasing every single related item, Makoto had already stormed off. Her phone rang. She quickly set down the bags and pulled it out. But when she saw the caller ID, her initial joy evaporated instantly. She opened a voice message. Makoto's furious voice blared, "Willow, I'm jealous. Tonight you have to treat me to the most expensive Western restaurant, or I'll never forgive you. Otherwise, I'm done with you." Willow paused for a moment, then sighed, giving in once again. "All right, I'll take you to TIYU." Almost immediately, a cheerful emoji popped up in reply. TIYU was the most luxurious Western restaurant in all of City A, with prices starting at $10,000 per person. After sending Makoto the message, Willow reopened her chat with George. Still no reply. After a moment's thought, she sent another message. "George, I won't be home for dinner tonight, so don't wait for me. I'll have someone deliver your gifts first. They're all things you like." Just before hitting send, her eyes fell on her previous promise that they would have dinner together that evening. Chapter 10. In that instant, an unusual sense of unease stirred in Willow's heart. Ever since Makoto's return, she had repeatedly broken her promises to George. Once, George had prepared an entire table of food, waiting for her to come home and eat together. Everything had been agreed upon beforehand. But just as she reached the doorstep, Makoto called, and without hesitation, she turned back and left. By the time she finally returned, George had already eaten and cleaned up. That night, his gaze on her had turned dull, his voice calm as he said, "I'm used to it." Fragments of the past flashed through Willow's mind. But soon, she brushed aside the unease. No matter what, George would never leave her. After all, with the lowly status of a chauffeur's son, he would never again marry a wealthy woman like her. He could only cling tightly to her. Only then could he cling to a lifetime of luxury and prosperity. With that thought, she pressed send without a shred of guilt. That evening, at TIYU, Willow let Makoto order freely. Makoto showed no restraint, though there were only 2 of them. He ordered enough dishes for 20, but when the food arrived, Willow didn't touch her chopsticks. Her brows furrowed in discomfort, as she suddenly realized, through all these years, Makoto had never once cared about her food preferences. In the dim, elegant atmosphere of the restaurant, Makoto couldn't see Willow's expression clearly. He was still immersed in playing the spoiled boyfriend who needed constant coaxing. In the past, whenever Willow upset him, he would throw a tantrum for days, demanding meals at the most expensive restaurants and even making her film public apology videos. Willow had never resisted his demands. As long as it made him happy, as long as it kept him loving her, she was willing to give everything. But tonight, Willow said nothing. And finally, Makoto sensed something was wrong. "Willow, you don't like the food I ordered?" At his voice, Willow lifted her eyes from her phone's chat window. Looking at the table filled with spicy dishes, she gave a faint response, her tone unreadable. "I don't eat spicy food." Makoto looked baffled. How could anyone not eat spicy food? Try it. As he spoke, he grabbed some chili peppers and dropped them into Willow's bowl. Still rambling, "George loves spicy food, but the kind of country bumpkin spice he eats is nothing like ours. His are cheap, low-grade peppers, nothing like these carefully cultivated ones." Suddenly, Willow burst out, "Enough." Makoto jumped, staring at her in confusion. Her eyes brimmed with suppressed struggle. She remembered, throughout 7 years of marriage, only once had spicy food appeared on their dining table. After that, she had said she didn't like it, and George had made sure never to serve it again. He had always quietly accommodated her, always remembering her likes and dislikes after being told only once. But Makoto, she had told him countless times since childhood that she didn't like spicy food, yet even now, he had never remembered. She no longer wanted to lie to herself. Perhaps expecting Makoto's love had only ever been a stubborn obsession from her youth. In that moment, she woke up completely. The one she loved was George, and the one who truly loved her was also George. "Makoto, George is my husband. I'm warning you, watch your mouth." Willow's voice was cold. Makoto couldn't understand what had changed. He tried to say more, but Willow had already risen and walked away. In the underground parking lot, Willow kept dialing George's number, only to be met with the cold, mechanical voice. The phone was switched off. She knew she had wronged him too many times recently. Once she got home, she had to properly apologize. From now on, the two of them would live their lives together, without anyone else coming between them. Just then, her phone rang. It was her lawyer. "Ms. Liu, the divorce certificate for you and Mr. Wang has been processed and sent to the villa." "What did you say?" "Divorce." Chapter 11. On the nighttime highway, a black sedan sped along. Willow's face was cold and tense, her foot pressing harder and harder on the accelerator. Panic churned in her chest. She wanted to reach George as quickly as possible, running through several red lights in a row. The lawyer had told her George had signed the divorce agreement half a month ago and rushed the process to finalize the certificate. From a legal standpoint, they were no longer husband and wife. Willow's mind kept replaying what had happened half a month earlier, until suddenly, a detail struck her. Could it be, that day, had George overheard her conversation with her friend? She remembered him being taken away by the police, his hollow eyes full of grievance and despair. Her heart sank further, and she pushed down on the gas pedal even harder. As soon as she got home, she rushed inside. "George! George!" Her voice echoed through the villa, but the place was eerily silent. Only the divorce certificate on the table stood out like a cruel truth. Willow's fingertips trembled as she touched the steel stamp on it. Just then, the police station called. "Hello, are you Mr. Wang's wife?" "Yes, I am," Willow answered without hesitation. The officer's voice was official and stern. "Upon re-investigation of the theft case, the report shows that the only fingerprints on the luxury watch belonged to Mr. Ito. We preliminarily conclude this case was staged by him alone and unrelated to Mr. Wang. The bail money has been fully refunded." Willow's heart clenched tight. It was Makoto. It really had been him framing George. She asked quickly, "When was he released on bail?" "Yesterday." Willow's hand shook as she gripped the phone. George had been out since yesterday, yet he hadn't answered any of her messages. Her eyes fell back on the divorce certificate. A terrifying thought consumed her mind. Had George really left her? She immediately had the surveillance footage from half a month ago pulled up. On the screen, George stood at the doorway, overhearing her conversation inside. He listened as his wife of 7 years called him a cheap man, saying that as soon as Makoto turned back to her, she'd divorce George without hesitation and marry Makoto instead. Tears streamed down George's thin face as he silently walked away. Seeing him cry alone, Willow froze completely. It was the first time she had ever seen him so heartbroken. He had loved her more deeply than she ever realized, and she had betrayed him. It was her fault. That was why he chose to leave. No matter what, she had to find him again. And as she thought of Makoto's lies and betrayal, her aura turned fierce, her eyes rimmed with crimson. At that moment, Makoto walked in carrying a few boxes of food. As if nothing had happened, he said casually, "Willow, you barely ate anything earlier." So I packed it all up. George must be back by now, let's give this to him. He set the food on the table, forcing the lids open, his knuckles turning white with strain. He was unwilling to admit it, but after 7 years of marriage between Willow and George, there was still some bond there. So he thought if he showed a little tolerance toward George, maybe he could gain Willow's favor. But Willow appeared at his side without him realizing. She had seen him gritting his teeth in frustration just moments ago. Makoto assumed it was that sight which had softened Willow's heart. Suddenly, Willow swept her arm across the table, sending all the boxes crashing to the floor. Her voice was sharp with fury. What are you doing? What makes you think George should eat your leftovers? Chapter 12. Makoto was visibly startled, then lifted his eyes, meeting the blazing fury in Willow's gaze. He couldn't understand it. How could someone who had been fine a moment ago suddenly turn on him the next? All because he forgot she didn't like spicy food. That was far too childish. Seeing his attempt to please her met with such a slap in the face, he couldn't help but raise his voice in anger. You left me alone in the restaurant just now, and now you're yelling at me over that pathetic loser George. What's wrong with you? You were the one who said you'd marry me, the one who said you'd divorce him, and now you're pretending to be some tragic romantic. Every word trampled across Willow's nerves. Her eyes turned cold, rimmed red with fury. Yes, I regret it. 7 years ago, when you abandoned me at the altar, I should have let go of my obsession, instead of entangling with you again after your return and driving George away. But Makoto, I'm warning you, you have no right to insult George. You'd better watch your mouth. Makoto froze for a few seconds, stunned by her scolding. He felt as though Willow had crushed his pride into the dirt. How could she say she regretted it? She had never been like this before. Wasn't she the one who always forgave him no matter what? The crushing sense of disparity made Makoto lose control and shout, You loved me so much. You could never bring yourself to leave me no matter what I did. How could you regret it now? It must be George. He must have played the victim in front of you, and now you've gone soft on him, haven't you? Noticing the faint twitch in Willow's brow, Makoto pounced on it instantly. I knew it. That freeloader would never give up a golden goose like you. Willow, you're just the same as before, you still can't lie. Willow stared at him quietly, suddenly exhausted by the conversation, her patience completely gone. Sensing her change in demeanor, Makoto's gaze shifted, and then he saw it. The divorce certificate lying on the sofa. A flicker of shock crossed his eyes. He rushed forward, snatched it up, and after confirming it was real, burst out laughing in glee. Grabbing Willow's hand, his face lit with excitement. I thought he'd be harder to get rid of, but he couldn't even last. Since he's already rolled out on his own, we can go register our marriage now. You've already betrayed him. So what? Are you going to betray me too? Willow's heart sank. The way she looked at Makoto was filled with unfamiliarity. She pulled her hand free and said coldly, Makoto, what do you take me for? Even if I broke my vow, it's nothing more than an eye for an eye. I'm going to find George. He is the only husband I will ever have in this life. The joy in Makoto's eyes drained away, inch by inch. His brows furrowed as he stared at her in disbelief. Are you insane? Don't tell me you've actually fallen in love with him. Willow didn't hesitate. So what if I have? Her eyes locked onto his. And Makoto, you know exactly how your luxury watch ended up in his belongings. I will settle that score with you. Once I bring George back, you'll apologize to him. Makoto hadn't expected the watch incident to be exposed so quickly. His expression froze for several seconds before his lips twisted into a mocking smirk. When he opened his eyes again, they were filled with ridicule. Apologize? To someone like him? Dream on, Willow. Stop pretending to be noble in front of me. Back in high school, if you hadn't been there to clean up my messes, I would have been expelled long ago. You're the reason I even had a chance to stay. And George? I bullied him for 3 whole years. You were complicit. At the mention of the past, Willow's hands, hanging by her sides, slowly curled into fists. Chapter 13. On that night during senior year of high school, Willow suddenly learned that a provincial official was making a surprise inspection at the school. Their school was the most prestigious in the city. If Makoto were caught bullying classmates, he would definitely be expelled. So she rushed to his class to stop him. That was the first time she ever saw George. He was delicate and clean-looking. Even though his limbs were pinned down, his eyes held no fear. With stubborn defiance, he straightened his back, ready to fight back at any moment. She was drawn to him. Originally, simply stopping the bullying would have been enough. Yet for some reason, she suddenly wanted to take him to the infirmary. On the way, she caught sight of their shadows on the ground, one behind the other, and her heart skipped a beat. Perhaps, from that moment, the seed of love for him had been planted. Thinking of this now, Willow's voice sank. Yes, I wronged him. When I find him, I'll make it up to him properly. And you too, Makoto, if you don't do as I say, you know the consequences. 7 years ago, when Willow officially took over the Liu Group, she shook the entire business world. Decisive and ruthless, she crushed the Liu family's competitors one after another, until the Liu Group stood unrivaled in City A. If she wanted, she could easily destroy the Ito family overnight. Sensing the seriousness in her tone, Makoto's chest tightened, his mind scrambling desperately for a solution. Suddenly, his phone rang, from an unknown number. "Baby, I found you. Did you really think running back home would keep me from tracking you down?" At the familiar voice, Makoto's face drained of all color, his eyes darting toward the door in terror. Following his gaze, Willow saw a sultry woman standing outside, though she had no idea when the woman had arrived. The woman strutted inside arrogantly, making Willow frown with discomfort. Sizing Willow up, the woman smirked wickedly and asked Makoto, "You left me abroad all alone. Never coming back, was it just to be with her?" Sensing something was off, Willow stared at the intruder coldly and demanded, "Who are you?" The woman pinched Makoto's face, speaking in a mockingly tender tone, "Why don't you tell her who I am?" Makoto's face turned ashen, his body trembling with fear as he stammered, begging, "Maria, please, just leave here for now." "All right, I'll get you the money. I just need more time." It was the first time Willow had ever seen him so pathetic. She frowned, but the next second, Maria suddenly wrapped her hands around his throat, teeth clenched in hatred. "I finally found you, and you think you can just throw me away? Not a chance." The whites of Makoto's eyes quickly filled with blood. Just as he was about to pass out, Maria released him. She then walked slowly up to Willow, her voice laced with provocation. "I'm Makoto's wife. We're already legally married abroad. And you, what are you? The mistress?" "Maria." Makoto's eyes widened in panic as he desperately tried to silence her, but Maria gazed at Willow with malice and continued bluntly, "You must be Willow. Makoto told me all about you, said you were his simp, that all he had to do was come back for a month and he could squeeze 50 million out of you. But he didn't listen. Now it's been over a month and a half, no calls answered, no texts returned. I thought maybe he was trying to run away from me, but from what I just overheard at the door, turns out he failed, didn't he?" She turned to glare at Makoto again, her voice sharp. "Didn't you say she was your simp? What? She stopped simping for you? Then what about my money?" Her razor-sharp nails lashed across Makoto's face again and again, blood seeping quickly from the corner of his mouth. Willow's expression darkened further. The next moment, she grabbed Maria and slapped her hard across the face, sending her sprawling to the ground. "Maria." Makoto immediately rushed to Maria's side, his face full of concern. Then, in the next breath, he turned an angry glare toward Willow. "Willow, don't you dare hit her." Chapter 14. Willow looked coldly at the scene before her, a bitter laugh echoing in her heart. "I actually betrayed George for a man like you. How ridiculous." With that, she signaled the bodyguards with her eyes to drag the two of them out, but at that moment, Makoto suddenly lunged forward, clutching at her leg, pleading desperately, "Willow, I'm sorry. I was foolish back then. I was wrong. If you want me to apologize to George, I'll do it. But could you lend me some money first? Maria owes a huge gambling debt. If she can't pay it back, they'll kill her." Willow lowered her cold gaze upon him, speaking each word with sharp precision. "So that's the real reason you came back to me, isn't it?" Makoto sobbed uncontrollably. "My parents. I've bled them dry over the years. They told me that if I don't break up with Maria, they'll never give me another cent. I had no other choice. I only wanted to borrow some money from you and then leave." "Willow, I didn't mean to break up your marriage. For the sake of us growing up together, can't you lend me 50 million? Willow's patience snapped, her voice rising in fury. "Makoto, what do you take me for?" Tears of regret streamed down his face, but suddenly his expression twisted, madness flickering in his eyes. "If it weren't for George, you would have agreed. It's all his fault. I want to kill him." Willow shoved him away, but he still didn't stop. "George should have died a long time ago. I regret not finishing him off sooner. Ever since high school, I couldn't stand the sight of him. He's a curse, always ruining everything for me." Willow's icy gaze locked on him, her teeth grinding. "Shut up, Makoto. If it weren't for the bidding conference in 3 days, I'd already have thrown your entire Ito family out of Jinghai. I can't stand the filth of you any longer." Her expression twisted with a ferocity he had never seen before, and fear quickly overwhelmed Makoto's heart. "Get out," she spat, barely restraining her rage. Makoto's face turned pale. He scrambled to his feet, dragging Maria with him as they fled. Once the villa was emptied, the silence was suffocating. Though only one person was gone, Willow felt her entire heart hollow out. She sat motionless on the sofa, George's face constantly appearing in her mind. In recent years, the Lu Group had expanded aggressively, creating many enemies in the business world. With the market cooling, the bidding conference 3 days later was crucial. Back then, in order to prop Makoto up, she had appointed him as director of the group. Even such an important project had his name written under project lead. If she suddenly replaced him now, it would cause serious repercussions. So she resolved, after 3 days, once the project was secured, she would expel Makoto from the company. From then on, They would have no further ties, she would live her life properly with George alone. As she wandered through the house, she noticed the wedding photo on the living room wall had been removed at some point. The butler told her George had ordered them to take it down some time ago. That day, he had even moved a box into the study. Suddenly realizing something, Willow rushed into the study. Inside the box were all the gifts she had ever given him over the years. Every tie she had bought for him was neatly folded in sealed boxes. Every bouquet she had given him, he had carefully taken a single flower to preserve as an eternal bloom. Seeing how much he had treasured them, Willow felt a stabbing bitterness in her throat, as if swallowing needles. In truth, the jewelry had only been complimentary gifts from luxury brands, given because she had bought so many expensive items for Makoto that she'd become a top-tier member. The flowers too, she had simply told her assistant to order the priciest bouquet, never sparing a thought. Yet he had cherished her perfunctory gestures as if they were precious. Her chest tightened with remorse, waves of guilt flooding her. She opened another drawer. Inside were the gifts he had given her over the past 7 years, untouched, piled up as if they had never mattered. She opened one, a custom necklace. The card read, "Willow, happy 26th birthday. Back in senior year, I secretly fell for you." Willow's heart clenched tight. So, on that day, it hadn't been just her who had fallen. Chapter 15. She recognized the necklace's designer, a famous foreign star designer, notoriously difficult to book. That woman only accepted clients if she felt genuine sincerity. It must have been George's sincerity in preparing the gift that moved her, making her agree to the commission. Every tiny detail of jewelry that Willow had once casually mentioned, he had remembered. She opened all the gifts, limited edition collectibles, handmade brooches. He had handwritten every card, carefully designing and selecting each gift with thought. But in the past 7 years, she had never opened a single one. She had let his devotion sink to the bottom of the ocean. Willow slowly slid down against the wall, her back collapsing as she sat on the floor. Over and over in her mind, she had asked herself why George left. In this moment, she finally found the answer. It was she who was unworthy of his love. She who had betrayed his sincerity. She had arrogantly assumed that George agreed to marry her only because of her prominent family background. She thought he was like all those shallow, greedy people, that as long as she fed him money, that would be enough. But she was wrong. She had forgotten that George never accepted humiliation passively. He was proud and pure, never one to submit easily. If not for his feelings for her, he never would have agreed to marry her in the first place. And from the moment he overheard her call him a cheap man, in his heart, he had already declared their marriage over. The power was never in her hands. It was George who no longer wanted her. A numbing shock rushed through Willow's scalp as she belatedly tallied her mistakes. Silently, she looked at the scattered gifts, regretful tears slipping quietly from the corners of her eyes. She sat alone in the study all night, clutching his cards, until dawn broke on the horizon. At that moment, she saw her heart clearly. She resolved that she must find George. She still owed him an apology. She would make it up to him. This time, she would never fail him again. On the day of the bidding conference, the venue buzzed with voices. The project's funding was massive, attracting countless companies eager to compete. The event was even streamed live online, with reporters crowding the back, the atmosphere grand and imposing. The host of the project was a foreign woman who placed great importance on the integrity and character of her partners. Willow and Makoto sat in the front row. Makoto, nervous and cautious, didn't even dare breathe too loudly, terrified of ruining things. Ever since that night when Willow had thrown him out, she had been utterly cold toward him, ignoring his calls, never replying to his messages. The only contact had been when she had her assistant hand him a USB drive, instructing him to review it thoroughly in advance. Makoto glanced nervously at her now. Willow's face was dark, her eyes filled only with focus on the bidding conference. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to summon every ounce of concentration. As design director, he would soon have to take the stage and present. If he ruined this bidding conference, Willow would never forgive him. But staring at the sketches George had drawn in the documents, his heart wavered with dread. The Lu Group was the first representative to present. Makoto panicked, casting a pleading look at Willow. She merely shot him a cold glance and ignored him. He swallowed again, braced himself, and stepped onto the stage. The venue's lights dimmed. After plugging in the USB, the computer screen flickered. Then, in the next instant, thousands of windows burst open. Makoto, so good, MMM. Each window automatically played the intimate video of him and Willow in the private booth that night. The moans echoed through every speaker inside and outside the venue. Will you really divorce George for me? You know I can never resist you. Chapter 16. What's happening? Makoto shouted in panic, immediately moving the mouse to close the windows. But there were too many to shut down. At the same time, everyone's eyes widened as they turned toward Makoto and Willow. The video kept playing, their bodies entwined in intimate passion. At the 7-minute mark, Willow's flushed face showed her reaching climax. How do you turn this off? Makoto yelled, his face ashen. Willow's expression was equally grim. She stared motionlessly at the giant screen. That USB drive had been given to her by George. He said it contained the design proposal's PowerPoint presentation, ready for use in the bidding conference. He had always been meticulous, and Willow had never doubted him. She had simply handed the USB to Makoto, telling him to review it beforehand. Now it was obvious, Makoto had never even opened it, and this virus-ridden USB drive. George had planted it deliberately. Willow sat frozen in her chair, unable to move. She wanted to stop the farce, but didn't know how to begin. George was President Liu's husband. They're having an affair. I've heard before that this Ito director was parachuted in. Turns out he's the side piece. So disgusting. Quick, record it. This trashy pair is unbelievable. After what felt like an eternity, Makoto finally forced the computer to shut down. Thinking quickly, he tried to defend himself. President Liu and George are already divorced. What you see is just normal interaction. This video doesn't prove anything. But someone in the crowd immediately called him out. In the video you're literally asking President Liu if she'll divorce her husband. Who are you trying to fool now? The original husband probably divorced her because he couldn't stand you too. Shameless. Immoral. Corrupt. Everyone, please redirect your attention to the bidding conference itself. To save time, let's put aside any discussion of President Liu and Mr. Ito's personal matters for now. The host rushed on stage to regain control, working hard to focus the crowd back on the event. The organizer's face had turned completely dark, though out of courtesy to the Liu group's status, they didn't cancel outright. Finally, under the host's effort, the noise gradually subsided. Makoto quickly plugged in a backup USB, pulling up George's sketches, and forced himself to continue the presentation. The moment the sketches and proposals appeared on the big screen, the audience collectively gasped. Even the organizer's eyes lit up. The designs were top tier, but Makoto's explanation was stilted. Stumbling, he even fumbled basic technical terms. From the seats, Willow's brows furrowed tightly. Her earlier decision to prop up Makoto felt laughably foolish now. In both professional skill and presentation ability, he wasn't even in the same league as George. If George had been on that stage today, it would have been a brilliant presentation. Down below, the organizer also cast doubtful looks at Makoto. Still, given that the Liu Group was the #1 company in a city, surely they wouldn't send an incompetent fool to represent them. During the QA session, when asked questions by others, Makoto fumbled and stammered, unable to respond. At last, the organizer raised a hand, halting the presentation. Makoto jumped in fright, frozen in place. Mr. Ito, can you confirm that this proposal is truly your original work? The organizer's tone was severe, his sharp gaze piercing directly into him. Makoto's face shifted from pale to green, guilt written all over him. He couldn't even find the words to argue back. Just then, every journalist in the hall received a text message. Expose. Liu Group accused of plagiarism. Willow Liu gave her ex-husband's hard work to her side lover. Chapter 17. The text messages contained ample supporting evidence, enough to prove that George was the true author. Damn. President Liu and her side lover ganged up against the original husband. Shameless. Stealing someone else's hard work. Absolutely no bottom line. No wonder the PowerPoint looked so polished. Yet the speaker sounded worse than garbage. Of course it's stolen. Shameless. Get out of here. This time, the organizer would not tolerate it. His face flushed with rage as he shouted for security to throw everyone from Liu Group out of the venue. For the first time, Willow was utterly humiliated, directly driven out. Countless cameras zoomed in on her face, capturing her shock and panic with cruel clarity. The live broadcast of the bidding conference instantly triggered a tidal wave online, shooting to the top of the trending charts. Meanwhile, I sat quietly in the study of the apartment, watching this farce unfold on screen. Anna walked slowly into the room, placing the winning contract documents in front of me, congratulating softly. Congratulations on landing this huge deal. I smiled faintly, accepting the papers, my gaze settling on my name signed beneath my own designs. My fingertips brushed lightly over the signature. The sense of reassurance was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Anna's eyes drifted to the live stream playing on the screen. Her heart tightened. Then she glanced at my expression. When she saw no trace of sadness on my face, she finally exhaled in relief. You expect me to have some reaction? I asked, noticing her gaze. Anna curved her lips, shaking her head gently. More than revenge fulfilled. I'd rather you had never suffered all this to begin with. I lifted my eyes to meet hers, her gaze overflowing with tenderness and compassion. My chest trembled, and I quickly turned my eyes back to the screen. On the live stream, Willow and Makoto were surrounded by a swarm of reporters, microphones nearly poking her eyes. Move aside, Willow snapped coldly, but no one budged. Everyone was condemning her and Makoto for their affair and disgraceful conduct. At that moment, they looked as though they'd been nailed to a pillar of shame, unable to move. Several times Makoto tried to grab Willow's hand, only to have her shake him off harshly. Then, suddenly, new bullet comments flooded the live stream. Makoto bullied me in school, I have photos to prove it. He bullied me too. He snapped my pinky finger in half and forced me to drink toilet water. It was him, because my younger brother glanced at him on the street. Makoto stabbed one of his eyes with a pencil. The juvenile protection law should protect us victims, not monsters like him. More and more comments appeared, victims of Makoto's cruelty speaking out, denouncing his crimes. These messages were quickly amplified, copied in bulk so they wouldn't be drowned out. A new trending topic soon emerged: Makoto school bullying. Looking at the horrific injury photos, my body trembled uncontrollably. So many others had suffered just like me. My eyes burned red as I stared at Makoto's face on the screen. One day, everyone must pay for their sins. Makoto, it's your turn. The scandal spread rapidly, staying on the trending charts for an entire week. The police soon intervened, launching a formal investigation into Makoto. In the end, he was convicted of intentional injury, sentenced to 10 years in prison, and ordered to pay massive compensation to the victims. When Makoto received the court summons, his face turned deathly pale. He was truly terrified. He knelt outside his parents' house for 2 days and nights, begging until they finally softened. Out of pity for their son, they helped him pay the compensation. But the enormous sum drained Ito family's cash flow in an instant. At that exact moment, Willow leveraged her influence, pulling every partner company away from Ito Group and into Lu Group. Ito's stock price plummeted overnight, and in less than a week, they were forced to declare bankruptcy. She had kept her word. Makoto had ruined the bidding conference, so she destroyed Ito Group. During the collapse, Maria sought Makoto out once, but Makoto, already drowning, lashed out furiously. If it hadn't been for you distracting me before the bidding conference, constantly pestering me for money so I couldn't focus on the PPT, things wouldn't have turned out like this. It's all your fault. How did you even find me? I clearly cancelled everything overseas. Maria's expression hardened, her smile turning cold. That man was right, you planned to throw me away and run off to another woman's bed. Makoto's eyes widened as he seized on her words. That man, who? Chapter 18. Maria had no intention of hiding the truth. Watching Makoto's terrified expression, she spoke with a mocking smile. Your old acquaintance, George. He was the one who found me, gave me your address, even bought me a plane ticket to send me back to you. Surprised? At the mention of George's name, Makoto's entire body trembled. How could he know you exist? He's just a worthless man. Where would he get the connections to find you? He's more capable than you. He's climbed up Su Group's powerful tree now. Is there anything he can't do? But you, Makoto, always acting like you're above the heavens. Yet you can't even squeeze money from a woman. Worse than that so-called worthless man. Her words completely shattered Makoto's fragile defenses. He roared. George again. Always George. He ruined everything. I'll kill him. On the verge of a mental breakdown, he jabbed his finger at Maria and cursed. Get out of my sight. Suddenly, Maria wrapped her arms tightly around him, her voice dripping with taunt. Makoto, you promised to take care of me, told me to quit the auto show job and follow you abroad. How can you go back on your word now? I won't allow it. You'll never escape me. A flash of hatred crossed Makoto's eyes. He snatched up a nearby ashtray and smashed it hard against the back of Maria's head. Blood poured out instantly. Crying out in pain, Maria released him. Makoto gave her his final ultimatum. Maria, I never want to see you again in this life. When Makoto entered prison, Willow still never came. All the so-called friends who once surrounded him had long since fled after his downfall, avoiding him like the plague. Alone and deserted, he walked through the prison gates, solitary and hollow. Half a month later, tragedy struck. The two elders of the Ito family suffered a sudden accident. Their car plunged off a cliff, killing them instantly. The suspect, Maria, wearing a baseball cap, deliberately revealed the news during a prison visit. Her half-squinted eyes glimmered with danger as she smiled chillingly. I cut the brake lines on purpose. Since I've already gone this far, you might as well accompany me to hell. Makoto's eyes bulged wide. The moment he heard his parents had been murdered, his heart tore apart. Maria, you bitch, I'll kill you. He slammed his head against the glass partition over and over in wild fury. Watching him spiral into madness inside, Maria ripped off her cap and burst into hysterical laughter. Yes, that's it, Makoto. I love watching you lose your mind for me. In the end, Maria was sentenced to death for intentional homicide. As for Makoto, his attempt to kill himself by smashing his head against the wall failed. Instead, he damaged his central nervous system, becoming mentally deranged. For the rest of his life, he would have to carry a colostomy bag, trapped in a state worse than death. Meanwhile, Lu Group also suffered catastrophic losses from the scandal. To prevent further damage, Willow was forced to announce suspension of operations. She curled up on the sofa, the the table littered with bottles of vodka. Like a walking corpse, she downed glass after glass, drunkenly mumbling George's name over and over. Willow no longer remembered the last time she had a full night's sleep, until one day, after yet another hangover, she woke with a splitting headache, but unlike the usual dull ache of alcohol, this pain struck violently, as if a drill were boring into her temple, twisting relentlessly. She tried to stand, but the next moment she collapsed unconscious. The butler, following routine duties, rushed her to the emergency ward. By luck, her life was barely saved, yet the doctor delivered the crushing verdict. She had a terminal illness. Chapter 19. Brain cancer. Willow wondered if she had misheard. Yes, MS. Lou, your condition is very serious, it's already at a late stage. The doctor sighed, his tone filled with regret. For once, Willow fell into rare silence. After a pause, she asked calmly, how much time do I have left? Given your current situation, about 2 months. The moment she learned her life had entered its final countdown, only one thought remained in her heart. She had to go to the person who mattered most to her. 2 months would be enough for one last chance to see George. I understand, she said. Willow no longer remembered how she walked out of the hospital. The butler who accompanied her looked at her with deep worry and asked cautiously, President Lou, should we head home now? Willow's long dark lashes cast a shadow over her eyes, her expression unreadable. It was as if she had made a decision. Her voice was steady, firm. To the property bureau. Yes, ma'am. She transferred all the remaining assets of the Lou Group to George's name, set to take effect in 2 months. If she could not accompany him into the future, then this wealth would be her final form of compensation. After finishing the paperwork, she returned home. Suddenly, her phone lit up with a news notification. Genius architect George establishes independent studio abroad. Willow's hand trembled as she held the phone, her eyes instantly welling with heat. In the article, George wore a fitted suit, tall and striking. Her heart pounded violently in her chest. He was still so handsome. For the first time in months, she was seeing him again. She stared fixedly at the men in the photo, her emotions a tangled knot. Since leaving her, George seemed to be doing even better. Her fingertip lingered on his image on the screen before she swallowed down the bitter ache in her chest. She had to find him, to tell him how much she loved him, and to say, I'm sorry. Over time, Anna and I had grown closer. Anna often came to the apartment to share meals, and on a few occasions, when we spoke of the past, I suddenly remembered we had actually met a few times before. Anna told me that during a middle school party at the Lou family's house, she couldn't stand Willow's haughty demeanor, so she slipped away to the rooftop for some peace, and there, she found me studying. Though we were the same grade, I was already working on higher-level material. Her curiosity sparked. She asked me about a few problems she'd struggled with in class. To her surprise, I not only answered them but also expanded on the concepts until she fully understood. Anna had been both amazed and impressed, constantly praising me as a top student. When the party downstairs ended, Anna said goodbye and was about to leave, only to realize I had tugged at the hem of her shirt. Confused, she turned back, and I looked at her with all seriousness. I explained 5 problems for you. I spent time and effort, you owe me compensation. Anna blinked, momentarily stunned, and for the first time blushed because of a boy. She emptied all the cash from her pocket into my hand and said, Sorry, that was careless of me. Thank you. I accepted the 10+ bills with composure. No need to thank me. You're generous. Next time, I'll teach you again. But after that encounter, the Sue family emigrated abroad, and I never saw her again. Recalling that first meeting, Anna still thought of it as something beautiful. At that moment, my father brought over a fruit plate. Naturally, Anna used sign language to ask him, Has the pneumothorax relapsed again? Father replied, It's recovered. I remembered 6 years ago when my father suddenly couldn't breathe while working. At the hospital, they discovered pneumothorax and rushed him into the ICU. He had been pulled back from the brink of death, but because of years of exhausting labor, recurrence was highly likely. For a long time, he couldn't even get out of bed. Later, the Lou family hired a top medical team, and after months of treatment, my father finally recovered. Thinking of this, my gaze fell, my eyes clouded with complicated emotions. Just then, I saw my father signing again. Thank you, Anna. If it hadn't been for you, I might still be bedridden now. Puzzled, I looked up. Anna replied to him, It was nothing. Your health is what matters most. In that instant, realization dawned on me. Shocked, I looked at her. It was you. Chapter 20. Anna's face was full of warmth. She didn't deny it. At that moment, my father pulled me aside. Anna was the one who arranged that medical team when she learned I was sick. Who else did you think it was? I thought back to those days when I watched over my father daily. Yet despite taking his medicine on time, his condition never improved. That medical team had arrived just in time and was highly professional. Back then, Willow happened to be on a business trip. In our routine calls, She often asked about my father's health, so naturally, I assumed it was her who had sent the team, but it turned out it was Anna. But you never told me. I signed back at my father, stunned. Anna smiled softly, her tone gentle. I was the one who asked Uncle not to tell you. Who arranged the team isn't what matters is the result. Now Uncle is healthy, and you've left her. The moment those words fell, a subtle atmosphere spread. Anna and I instinctively looked away, while my father laughed, clearly understanding everything. After dinner, he suggested the two of us go out for a walk to digest. Beneath the setting sun, Anna and I strolled nearby. The golden light bathed us. Anna. Suddenly, I called her name. From behind my back, I pulled out a gift and handed it to her. Thank you for everything you've done for me and my father these past weeks. After we secured that project, I received quite a bonus, and you even supported me in setting up my own studio. Thank you for making me feel like everything is finally getting better. Anna awkwardly accepted the gift, a faint blush spreading across the tips of her ears. She wanted to thank me, but the words stuck in her throat. We continued walking in silence until the sun was just a sliver above the horizon. Right before the last trace of sunlight disappeared, Anna finally gathered her courage. She looked at me with seriousness. George, I like you. Would you be willing to start a new relationship with me? Her beautiful almond eyes held a touch of unease, yet also a quiet hope. The sunset fell upon her face. The breeze tugged gently at her hair. I lowered my gaze, raised my hand to cup her cheek, and pressed a soft kiss upon it. That's my answer. Anna Sue froze for a few seconds, then her eyes welled up as she whispered, voice trembling, George, I've finally waited for you. Then, rising on tiptoe, she kissed me deeply. The studio grew rapidly. My abilities won recognition from every organizer, and with the Sue group backing me, my name spread quickly. My team expanded from just 3 or 4 people to over 30. At a staff dinner, I never expected I would run into her again. After so long, Willow looked far thinner than before. I was still stunned to see her there when, in the next moment, I felt warmth rush into my arms. Willow clung to me tightly, her hands trembling with happiness. She whispered that during these months apart, she had thought of me constantly, but I furrowed my brows, forcefully pushed her away, and spoke coldly. Ms. Lou, please behave yourself. Willow hadn't expected me to treat her with such unfamiliar distance. She froze for several seconds, then reached for my hand again, only to have another hand slap hers away. Anna stepped in front of me, her expression unreadable as she said firmly, stay away from him. Willow's eyes widened. Her gaze darted between us, her brows furrowed as she asked, How are you with Anna? What is your relationship? Chapter 21. Anna was about the same height as Willow. She met her gaze levelly, and before I could even speak, she calmly took over the conversation. George has no obligation to tell you anything. If you insist on blocking the way, don't blame me for calling someone to throw you out. Willow narrowed her eyes, her gaze toward Anna filled with hostility. And what right do you have to speak for him? The atmosphere turned instantly tense. My brows knit with displeasure as I said, word by word, Willow, I've already divorced you. Hearing the dissatisfaction in my tone, Willow softened her voice. George, I'm sorry. I know you're still angry with me. Everything that happened before was my fault. Can we talk it through? Just give me one more chance. Okay. Anna let out a cold laugh and said bluntly, do you not understand plain words? George said it already. He divorced you. He doesn't like you anymore. At those words, Willow's pupils shrank sharply, as if they struck straight at her most fragile nerve. She couldn't help but raise her voice in protest. If he doesn't like me, then what? Does he like you? I immediately pulled Anna's hand into mine and looked at Willow with nothing but indifference in my eyes. Anna and I are together now. If you keep clinging on like this, you're only humiliating yourself. Willow froze for a moment, her eyes gradually clouding with confusion. We were married for 7 years. How can you just let go? Just like that? 7 years of marriage, how could it simply vanish? That was something she could never understand, but I understood all too well. She called me a cheap man. She said she could leave me at any time for another man. Those words had once haunted my nightmares, and I couldn't understand either. How could she so easily discard me after 7 years of marriage? How could she use me as nothing more than a pawn in her game of spite against another man for 7 whole years? Enough. I cut her off sharply, showing no mercy as I delivered my final ultimatum. Willow, don't ever appear before me again. For the rest of my life, I never want to see you. With that, Anna and I walked into the restaurant together, not sparing Willow even a single glance. Willow stood frozen where she was, her eyes reddening. She hadn't expected that after meeting again, George would say such cruel words to her. She couldn't bring herself to accept the fact that he was now with another woman. Had he truly not thought about her even once during these past months? Willow forced herself to steady her emotions. She had been the one who made mistakes. George had suffered so much hurt. Demanding his forgiveness right away would indeed be too cruel. Clenching her fists, she made a silent vow. From now on, she would show George her sincerity. One day, he would forgive her. Watching his figure vanish around the corner, Willow's head suddenly throbbed violently. Without warning, she staggered, clutching the wall as she squatted down, dizziness overwhelming her to the point of nausea. She gagged several times, afraid George might see her in this state. She forced herself to crawl along the wall toward a corner. By the time she could stand again, the restaurant had already closed. She knew her time was running out. Near George's residence, she rented an apartment and quietly kept watch over his life. On his way to and from work, on the small town path where he strolled with Anna, in the countryside where they spent holidays, she always followed silently behind, keeping her distance. As days passed, her illness worsened. Even when she tried to seek treatment at hospitals, doctors only shook their heads, saying the cancer was too advanced. Even chemotherapy would no longer help. Back at her rented room, she took out the one and only photo of herself with George and stared at it in a daze. Chapter 22. In the photo, George was wearing an ill-fitting suit. His brows were slightly curved, his eyes softened, looking at her with anticipation and love. Willow once again carefully traced his face with her fingertips. By now, her hair had grown sparse, and every time she left the house she had to wear a thick hat. Every relapse of her illness forced her to recognize again and again that she was a dying person. She and George no longer had a future. At the entrance of the studio, my voice rang coldly. Willow, what will it take for you to finally stay away from my life? The icy tone made Willow's whole body tremble. A sharp pain stabbed her chest. Once, his gaze had been filled with love when he looked at her. Now, when he looked at her, it was only with disgust. George, I know I made too many mistakes in the past. My sins are unforgivable. I only want to atone now. She took out the model car Makoto had once said was George's favorite, and handed it to me like a child yearning for praise. My brow furrowed slightly, but I didn't accept it. You don't like it? Willow quickly caught the change in my expression and asked. I used to, but now, when I see it, all I remember are unpleasant things from the past. So no, I don't like it anymore. Once, this very model had been the excuse Makoto used to bully me. My voice was calm, as though I were telling someone else's story. Without hesitation, Willow threw the model away. Her voice was hoarse. I'm sorry. These days, she had said I'm sorry to me more than 100 times. But inside, I felt nothing. I spoke with weary finality. Willow, whatever you think now has nothing to do with me. I'll say it again. We're divorced. Stop following me. Her voice trembled, her face turning deathly pale. I'm sorry, George. I only want to stay by your side now. I no longer hope you'll forgive me. I just beg you to let me remain near you. Please? She hunched her back, lowering herself. For the first time, I saw such a humble expression on her face. I sighed, unwilling to waste another word on her. On my birthday, Anna Sue held a grand party for me at her estate. Drone shows, fireworks, a live performance by my favorite band and singer. Everyone said, the president of the Sue family is madly in love with George. Willow sat on a park bench outside the estate, staring at the brilliant fireworks filling the sky. Thousands of drones spelled out George and Anna. She pulled down the brim of her hat, forcing herself to look away. Suddenly, a wave of cheers erupted inside. No wonder this birthday party is such a grand spectacle. Miss Sue came fully prepared. Willow's heart clenched. She instantly stood up and rushed over. At the center of the crowd, Anna was proposing to me. George, will you marry me? Her eyes sparkled, brimming with love. I looked at her. How could a lady be the one to propose? Then I dropped to one knee, taking out the ring I had prepared beforehand, and asked, Anna, will you marry me? Anna's eyes filled with tears as she nodded fiercely. She threw her arms around me. The moment those words left my lips, the entire audience erupted into thunderous applause. My father stood by with a face full of relief, watching his son finally find true happiness. Get away. An enraged voice suddenly cut through the noise. Everyone froze, turning to look at the newcomer. Beneath the brim of her hat, Willow's eyes were as dark and terrifying as storm clouds. Her gaze locked onto the diamond ring on my hand. Chapter 23. Suddenly, someone in the crowd recognized her. Isn't that President Lou from the bidding conference? She even trended on the hot searches back then. George's ex-wife. What? Why is she here? Could it be she came to crash the wedding? With her kind of corrupted morals, she doesn't deserve George at all. I don't even understand how she has the face to show up here. What a curse. The voices of discussion grew louder and louder. Everyone's eyes fixated on Willow, waiting for her next move. But Anna and I remained perfectly calm. Suddenly, my father grabbed a small cake from the side and smashed it hard into Willow's face. Furious and agitated, he signed with his hands. Get out. You hurt my son. You vile woman. Leave this place. Get out. Willow stood there with cream smeared all over her face, looking both wretched and ridiculous. She couldn't understand sign language. She had never learned it, but she could feel the hostility radiating from Father Wang. She chose to accept it. She had betrayed George. She deserved this. Then Willow suddenly raised her hand and pointed forcefully at Anna, her voice hoarse. "If you ever dare hurt George, even as a ghost I won't forgive you." The entire crowd exchanged bewildered glances, surprised by her words. Even Anna and I, standing on stage, showed faint changes in expression. I frowned. Speaking first, "Willow, you and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. You have no standing to say that." The words pierced her heart like a blade, pain flickering in her eyes. "George, I just hope you'll be happy." Feeling the numb tingling at the back of her head, Willow realized her illness was flaring up again. She turned abruptly and left without another word. Back at her rented apartment, her breathing grew heavier and heavier, waves of piercing pain drilling into her skull. Reason told her she should try not to think of anything, endure, let the storm of agony pass. But her mind wouldn't stop replaying the image of George proposing to another woman. Curled into herself, she sank into the sofa, letting tears stream endlessly down her face. In the days that followed, her condition worsened. She spent most of her time unconscious. Sometimes she awoke to find the sheets soiled. The tumor had already begun pressing on her central nervous system, causing her to lose control in her sleep. Her vision grew dimmer and dimmer. When the light was even slightly weak, she could hardly see anything. Because of this, the light in her bedroom stayed on 24 hours a day. Willow endured the torment for a week, barely, until the day of my wedding. She dug out the wedding dress she had worn at her own ceremony years ago, standing before the mirror, smoothing the skirt again and again. But no matter what she did, it could never recreate the way it looked 7 years ago. Afterward, she placed her hat on her head and stepped out. The sun shone brightly that day. Red carpets and white chairs were arranged across the lawn. Guests squinted against the light, smiling as they exchanged pleasantries. Under everyone's gaze, I walked in, dressed in a fitted, elegant suit, and the moment Anna appeared in her wedding gown, the guests drew in a collective gasp. She smiled faintly, beautiful like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Standing together, the two of us looked dazzlingly perfect, and the guests burst into cheers and applause, witnessing this pair of lovers finally united as one. Anna's gaze upon me overflowed with devotion, her eyes moist. "George, thank you for appearing in my life. I love you." I raised my hand to gently wipe away her tears. "I love you too." As my words fell, I slowly lifted her veil and placed a reverent kiss upon her lips. Hidden in the shadows, Willow was already in tears, her face wet and trembling. She clasped her hands over her chest, whispering prayers deep within her heart. "George, I wish you happiness, eternal happiness." Before the wedding ended, she left quietly. Her throat tasted of rust, her head heavier and more agonizing than ever before. She knew her time was almost gone. Enduring the pain, she staggered step by step out of the venue. Finally, the moment she collapsed by the roadside, a round of thunderous applause exploded behind her. The officiant's voice rang out, full of passion. "Across the boundless seas, across mountains and rivers, through years unending, may we all together bless the bride and groom with everlasting happiness in their marriage." Willow fainted, her hat rolling off, exposing the patchy baldness and disfigurement of her scalp. A kind passerby dialed for an ambulance, but her breathing was already shallow and fragile. She passed away before reaching the hospital. 1 week later, I received a package, a letter Willow had long scheduled to send, along with a stack of property transfer documents. The letter read, "George, I'm sorry. I know no matter what I do, you'll never forgive me. I'm sorry for all the pain I caused you. I'm sorry for wasting so many years of your life. I wanted so badly to stay by your side, but I'll soon be gone. Maybe this is heaven's punishment for me, that I can't even hide in the shadows to watch over you anymore. I'm sorry. George, I love you. I wish you happiness." After finishing the letter, I silently tossed it into the trash. Inside, I felt nothing. A belated apology and belated love are equally worthless. I never needed either. I carry within me my own boundless courage. With it, I will stride forward, toward a future filled only with beauty.